Warner Bros. Discovery and Paramount possibly merging. Got some big updates. I'm going to show you guys the article in just a minute, how it impacts WWE, and so much more. It's coming up. Don't forget, we're giving away this championship belt at 100,000 subscribers, so go ahead and click subscribe today. Welcome back to the Ango Show. I, of course, am Ango. I want to kick things off with some CM Punk news. We often talk about whether or not CM Punk is a draw in professional wrestling. Now, we have looked at the numbers when CM Punk was fired from AEW, and we saw a significant drop across the board. Now, it's interesting because I don't think there's enough data to tell whether or not CM Punk has become a very big draw for the WWE. I think we need a little bit more time to really come to a clear conclusion. However, Kevin Nash was talking about this on his podcast, and he believes that CM Punk did about $600,000 worth of merchandise in 24 hours. And I'm fascinated by this information. One, I don't know if it's valid, right? I can't sit here and tell you guys that Kevin Nash and this information is 100% accurate. I don't know if this is a guessing game. I don't know if he spoke to somebody closely in the WWE. But this number is being floated around. People are talking about this on social media. It's all over my timeline. And I think it's a very impressive number considering, really, I'm just not a fan of WWE merchandise. I think WWE shop is not, I don't think their merch designs and stuff like that, I'm not very flattered by them. I don't typically buy them. But I would say $600,000 is a very significant number, especially within 24 hours. Now, to really come to a true conclusion as to whether or not CM Punk is a draw for WWE, I think we need a little bit more time to make that assessment. But in order to make that assessment, we have to look at the same thing that I looked at with AEW. When CM Punk was fired from AEW, the company's trajectory was starting to go down a little bit. That was very apparently made when you look at the numbers of TV viewership, ticket sales, and merchandise sales numbers. Now, when you look at these different figures, I think it is really hard to gauge whether or not CM Punk is actually a draw for WWE because he hasn't been making that many appearances. And to be fair, WWE before CM Punk was continuing to increase year-over-year numbers. So WWE was still having a significant rise in their business department where they didn't necessarily need CM Punk to change anything. Obviously, within time, that is something I'm going to be paying very closely attention to. But I want to know what you guys think. Is $600,000 am I tripping for thinking that's a significant amount of money in 24 hours? I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm not a big merchandise guy. I don't go on WWE Shop and buy merchandise. I never really care for their designs, so I'm never really intrigued to buy clothing from WWE. I think there's a lot of other cool independent fashion designers that create wrestling clothing that I would prefer buying from. So, I just feel like 600,000 is a lot. Maybe it's not, but I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down below. Guys, WWE had all those releases earlier this year, and now tomorrow will become the big day because on December 21st, the following names will be free and clear to sign with any promotion they want: Mustafa Ali, Aaliyah, Shelton Benjamin, Rick Boogs, Dana Brooke, Dabo Kato, Elias, Quincy Elliott, Yulisa Leon, Mason Mansoor, Riddick Moss, Riddle, Shanky, Top Dollar, Ziggler. We know also Tennille Dashwood and Riddick Moss have been doing, they're launching a new show on YouTube, which is very cool. Definitely intrigued by that. But now that tomorrow will come, technically speaking, they could show up in any TV company, which means they could show up in TNA, they could show up in AEW. Which I think is fair to say they could show up on AEW Rampage. They could show up on AEW Collision this weekend. And then obviously there's other companies that exist as well. But I have a very strong feeling that not everybody on this list will be able to go and find a job in wrestling. And not necessarily go and find one, but they may not have interest, right? So, for example, one example I really want to take a look at is Mason Mansoor and Top Dollar. Mason Mansoor showed up at Deadlock Pro Wrestling. We know that there's going to be some involvement for Mansoor at GCW. We know Top Dollar, AJ Francis, will be going to GCW as well. So some of the people on this list will continue to wrestle. And like always, some people get released by the WWE, and they're not necessarily interested in wrestling for any company for that matter. Lacey Evans was actually pretty spot on with what she was saying. Like, WWE was not her passion. So some people get released by the WWE and we never see them in a wrestling ring again. Now is the time to pay attention, because AEW, TNA, NWA, MLW, there's a lot of options for those who are released. And that's just in America. You can't even forget about New Japan and Pro Wrestling Noah and AAA and CMLL. There's opportunities for people. This is something to definitely pay attention to. And one thing I really want to make very clear here is that this is why the wrestling industry is so important to be healthy. When there are other companies, if you want to continue wrestling, there are options. And WWE not being the only player in town helps very significantly. I want to turn our attention to some groundbreaking news. Paramount Plus and Warner Bros. Discovery could be merging. So I want to turn our attention to this incredible article on Axios. Warner Bros. Discovery in talks to merge with Paramount Global. Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav met with Paramount Global CEO Bob Bakish on Tuesday in New York City to discuss a possible merger. Why it matters? This would create a news and entertainment behemoth that would likely trigger further industry consolidation. Zaslav also has spoken to Sherry Redstone, who owns Paramount's parent company, about a deal. WBD's market value was around $29 billion as of Wednesday. Paramount's was just over $10 billion. So obviously any merger would not be of equals. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff here that you can read. I'll put the link in the description down below. But the reason why I want to talk about this is because I have been saying for years that streaming entities, these global conglomerates that own a whole bunch of content, they are struggling. And Paramount has been struggling. And obviously Paramount, it's owned by Viacom. So the thing is, Paramount Global has access to all of this content. And we saw the numbers for Showtime, right? Showtime was failing. They're going away. Not good things coming from it. They were deeply impacted when it came to like Bellator, MMA, their parent company, obviously Paramount, like all of these different things had a significant impact on them. And when you look at Warner Bros. Discovery, it's not like HBO Max or Max streaming service has been doing off the charts with their signups. So the thing is, what you're starting to see, especially in America, you're starting to see the top television broadcast companies, right? You have your NBC, which is owned by Comcast. You have Disney, which owns ESPN and all of these other sectors, right? Disney, FX, and whatnot. You have all of these companies, and what you're starting to see is everything get consolidated. Now, what this means for pro wrestling is interesting, because if WWE were to join Warner Bros. Discovery, but they merge with Paramount, that means WWE would technically be able to be accessible on CBS or CBS Sports or Paramount Plus, anything like that, right? So now you have to factor those in, and it's not just WWE, but it's AEW. Maybe TNT, and this is a very significant thing, right? TNT, TBS, AEW is constantly getting pushed over to the side because of the live sports that are on those channels. But when you come together with Paramount, now you have access to so much more. Keep in mind, Paramount has MTV and VH1 and all of those other channels too. So they have a plethora of channels now. If you come together, both companies have been very fond of pro wrestling in the past. Whoever is going to get that TV deal with Warner Bros. Discovery technically could be involved with Paramount. And I think that could very much change what happens to AEW or WWE in this particular case. I have been predicting for years that we are going to see streaming services and a whole bunch of TV companies come together and combine, because there is too many options, there's too much saturation in the market, and it becomes a very costly thing to do when you are owning all of these intellectual TV rights. So think about that for a second. These companies are bleeding money, and the only thing that makes them valuable are the assets of the TV rights they own, which is why it is important that they merge together to create a powerhouse, and that is likely to happen.